While the NFL is said to be investigating the allegations, no other major action has been taken yet by the league. And here to join the debate, we've got Damien Woody. And Kimberly, I want to start with you here. Do you think that Watson needs to be put on the NFL Commissioner's Exempt list immediately?
Charlie, no, I don't. And here's why. Because the Commissioner's Exempt list wasn't designed for the off season. It was designed for when guys are in season, for, preventing guys from practicing or playing in games while a situation needs to be resolved. I think we can debate how this looks for Watson, all of these women, whether, do we anticipate him starting in week 1 or being on a team? That is a separate conversation than the exempt list. I think with him, I feel like people get on the league for how it handles situations, especially situations involving domestic violence or any issues with the treatment of women. And the league has sort of been criticized for how it doles out punishment. Sometimes it seems arbitrary. Sometimes it seems excessive. You talk about Deflategate. But at the end of the day, we can't just ask the league to act for the sake of acting. The league has been well criticized for just giving perfunctory statements. Yes, we are deeply disturbed by this. Yes, it's a statement, but those words really said nothing because, we should all be disturbed by these allegations. But after reading that statement, did anybody feel better or feel like, okay, those were the words we needed this time? No, because at this point, the league can't do it. It doesn't know anything. It's still investigating. And you can't, at this point, there are no practices. There are no games. So you put him on the list for what? He's not at a facility right now. So I think that the league adding him to the Commissioner's Exempt list would just be another step that makes the league look like, oh, it's just doing something to do something. And that's not what's needed right now. As the situation plays out, if this escalates, if more women come forward, if criminal charges are brought against him, then the league can actually do something. But this gray, murky area where no one really knows anything, that's a difficult spot for the league to be in.
Listen, I agree with Kimberly here. I think it would be a totally different situation, and Kimberly touched upon it, if we were in training camp, where now, the NFL is really preparing for the season, or even at the beginning of the regular season. Then I think that's what the Commissioner's exempt list is for, to kind of put this guy, in a position where he's, where the NFL can continue to evaluate the situation and kind of make this guy disappear from being a distraction, not only to the organization, but for the rest of the league at that time. We're in the off season where, we haven't even hit the NFL drafts yet. So I think there's plenty of time for the league to continue its investigation into these allegations against Deshaun Watson. Obviously, the team is doing it. But I just don't think that, like Kimberly said, just to stash a guy on the exempt list just to do it, I don't think that's the purpose of the list right now. And there's plenty of time before we hit actual games, before I think the NFL has to consider making that type of move.
Well, I think the purpose of the list is really interesting, hearing both you, Woody, and Kimberly's perspective on it. But based on the past few days, I just think overall, as a woman watching what has happened and following it, I know, Kimberly, you're a reporter, and when it started, it was tough to digest. And then now, totaling up to 22 civil lawsuits, it's hard for us to fathom these things. And then now, yesterday or the day before, we've seen some of the victims, and to put a face, to put feelings and emotions to those names that we have been reporting, it's an emotional process for all of us as fans of the sport. This is really tough to process. And again, we'd be remiss to not say, as women here in the sports world, we stand by women that bravely tell their stories, knowing that that is truly the most difficult thing to do. But we also know that there is due process of law, and that Deshaun Watson will probably have his opportunity, because it's been kind of radio silence since, his lawyers and his representatives have said, hey, this is not what it seems to be. Well, that's why the law steps in to handle that process. The legal process plays out. And it's really interesting to see also yesterday that Nike has, quote, suspended his contract, while Beats has terminated his endorsement contract. And in unprecedented situations like this, I think that's where the public pressure to do something, even if it is putting him on the commissioner's exempt list, while it is, not necessarily its purpose, I think as time goes on, because this is a lengthy process that's being reported on, and just knowing the legal process, it's going to be hard to sort of quell that public angst. And I think it is uniquely positioned in moments like this, maybe to reevaluate and look, because obviously that exempt list, and this is where I go back to you, Kimberly, means he would potentially maintain his salary. He just would not be an active player currently. And so based on the gravity of the women's claims, by removing him temporarily from the Texans, it seems like a lot of people are bringing up the commissioner's exempt list to sort of be that vehicle to address the gravity, but also know that it gives due process a chance to play out as well.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this is, the sponsorship deals. What's different about the sponsorship deals? Nike took a stand and Beats, and it feels like, I think the public might feel like, well, the NFL is eerily quiet. They're not doing anything. But Deshaun Watson being affiliated with those brands can hurt them financially. Right now, we have no practices. We have no games. As Woody said, we're not even at the draft yet. So Deshaun Watson is hidden from you. He's not, when it comes time for criminal charges, if it comes to that, because guys, nothing's been proven or unproven to this point. So let's be very clear about that. But when it comes to an issue of financial dollars and your affiliation to a particular athlete, that it makes sense that sponsors would pull out, because you can sell headphones at any time, right? Well, the season's not happening. There's no training camp right now. Like, the league literally is in a position of, we have to wait and see, because if the league were to suddenly defend him or say, you know what, the way this is going, he probably did it, let's move him to the exempt list or suspend him. Like, we haven't even gotten far in this process, even though it feels like every single day there's another lawsuit or finally we have a woman speaking publicly and detailing the emotional toll it took on her. But right now, women tell the truth and should be believed, and there's women who lie, and there's men who should believe and get falsely accused. This is a very murky situation, and you have to be really, really careful when you want people to start acting when we don't have enough information.
Yeah. And Kimberly, you had mentioned that the NFL was being eerily quiet. NFL spokesperson Brian McCarthy did speak up this week in regards to these allegations, and he called them, quote, deeply disturbing. But really, that's all that's been said by the NFL thus far. Woody, I want to know, though, if this situation continues down the path it's on right now, which is very unfortunate, do you believe that Watson will be placed on the exempt list before week 1?
Yeah, listen, if this situation isn't resolved and the investigations continue on, right up until the season, I do believe that the commissioner will put Deshaun Watson on the exempt list, simply because you don't want that type of distraction when your season is basically starting. So I think that if this situation continues to linger, that Deshaun Watson he'll find himself on that exempt list.
Okay, so one more thing to add, along with the Nike deal, along with the Beats by Dre deal, also Reliant Energy, which owns the naming rights to the Texans Stadium in Houston. They are also saying that Watson will no longer be a brand ambassador for them. They do add, though, that their partnership that it currently stands was scheduled to end prior to these allegations coming out, but they said they do not plan on working with the quarterback moving forward. So a lot of things happening in regards to Deshaun Watson and his partnerships right now. All right, Damien, you are sticking with us because we still have a lot more NFL to get to, including talking about one of your former teammates. With the Bucs bringing back the squad, is there anything that can stand in Tom Brady's way of getting ring number 8? We debate it. Plus,